So welcome to MyWatches podcast, episode 14. And we have Team Han and, as usual,
Recurring
Woody.
guest.
Recurring guest. Yeah, in case you don't know yet, Swatch Addict WT. Yeah. Link will be here as well, as usual.
I think at this point we can just call him a permanent member.
Yeah. So, all right. So there's lots to talk about for today. We're going to talk about the new releases, what's going on before Watching Wonders and after Watching Wonders, and our thoughts on those releases as well, right? But first things first, wristwatch check, right? So I'm wearing my Snowflake today, the SBGA 011, the OG. Hope you can see it.
With the double branding.
Yeah.
Yeah, the real OG.
All right, next.
I'm wearing the 3861 Sapphire Sandwich Omega.
And yeah, I'm wearing the 1861 Hasselite with the 3861 bracelet.
Best combo ever.
Best of both worlds for me.
I'm wearing the Grand Seiko SPGH 371.
NWA.
Yeah, NWA.
And NWA indeed.
All right. So maybe before we kickstart the topics, how do you find the watch, Dean?
It's actually really growing on me. Like so many things, like I fell in love with the watch, like only seeing like stock images, print, and then I only like spent very little time when I was at the dealer, like 1 or 2 times. But that itself, I really liked it. But when I actually had it on my wrist, spent some time with it in the sun, not in the sun, I realized that especially the dial, gosh, the dial is so dynamic. It's not just texture. The dial has a little bit sunburst to it as well. And there is also something like Woody's White Birch, where if you adjust the watch up and down, there is like, I'm not sure how to describe it, but it's something like you see like another layer of pattern to it. So very, very dynamic, very unexpected. The more I spend time with it, the more I like it. The only gripe is, well, I think you all know, it's the Grand Seiko colored print at the case back, which is obstructing my view of the movement. But what I also realized is because the back of the movement, it's also very reflective. So even with a little bit of light, right, you see a lot of reflection from the movement. So it makes it even harder to admire the movement. So that was the thing that I know it's perlage, right? I think it's perlage. It makes it very hard to view it with a camera. Maybe it's easier, but just with your naked eye, it's quite hard actually. I'm not sure if you feel that way, but of your watch, Woody. But I think your case back is rather different.
Yeah, it is.
And yours also, right, James? Yeah.
I think it's closer to James, the Snowflake, because the Snowflake also has a lot of wave perlage that they've done, but I can't remember how the one on the Four Seasons looks like. Probably need to look up a photo later.
And what do you think about the dial color combination? Did you have trouble like dressing it up, dressing it down? Because I think
no, man,
combination is not very conventional.
I feel it's quite okay. Like I've went out with it to hike. In fact, that was when I spent the most time in the sun. So I think it's quite okay, because what is quite unique about it is that unless you have direct sunlight of it, the shade of green doesn't really pop that much, and neither does the gold. So if you look at it from afar, right, it literally looks like dark, like a black dial. So initially my only concern was like the gold, it might be a bit too much, but really like in office light, it really is not that glaring. Only if you bright sunlight, then you really see like the glinter of the gold, which is actually quite amazing. That's another thing that I like. Yeah. It's definitely a very different feel compared to if it was like the steel indices.
That's good. I mean,
have you tried?
Go ahead.
Have you tried playing around with strap combinations?
No, man, because surprisingly, I quite like the Grand Seiko bracelet.
Yeah, I guess you have the wrist for it as well.
But
You have no problem fitting it, right? Because there's no micro adjustments and everything.
yeah, I took out one full link. That's is it one
Oh,
full
that's
link?
all.
One full link. One full link and a half link, sorry. Let me rephrase. One full link and a half link. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's actually quite comfortable. I was quite surprised because it took a while. I literally went back to the shop 2 times. I don't want to change myself. I still have to change.
Yeah, I think Malaysian weather is a bit iffy sometimes,
Yeah.
And the mall is cold, and then you feel it, then you think that it's good, then you go home and then you go into different conditions. You brought it hiking, so you probably know what is the spectrum of sizing you need, right? So
but you're right, in the sense that it's if you get it right, you get it right. But if you can't get it right, it's very hard to get it right because there's no micro adjustment. So that's the problem. Another grab lah, but luckily I it's quite okay for me, thankfully.
yeah, maybe that's a business opportunity for Uncle Seiko, right? He's been coming up with half links for
Yeah.
a lot of famous watches recently.
Yeah.
Well, congrats on that, and we're in good health. All right. Okay, so let's get to the main agenda. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to there's a couple of images that Woody and myself has plotted in to help us facilitate this discussion, right? Or this run through.
Feels like our production value is going up.
I know, right? This is
I hope
amazing.
So. So I think disclaimer: these images are all sourced online. So if we do take some other images from some other places, we owe you a credit to that. This is in disclaimer, not any of our images. We didn't take any of this, purely online, and not all watch releases are covered here. These are the ones that we spotted and the ones that we find interesting. So if it is not covered here, you know why. All right. So first things first, the big thing that everyone's talking about, anybody who is a watch enthusiast, not a watch enthusiast, literally everybody is talking about this, right? Omega Swatch, a collaboration, right? So we're going to talk about what do you guys think about the watches. Do you think it's worth it? What do you think the direction is? Then we'll talk about the hype, right? So there's all what we're going to cover for this, right? So moving on, they released a total of 11 versions, including a Earth and a satellite or something like that. I can't remember.
They did the moon, they did the sun, and
Yeah.
they included Pluto, who's technically not a planet, but okay.
Yeah, no longer a planet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these are the watches, right? You see 11 of them. It was announced early in the week that they give a date, right? Omega X Watch in a closed case, and a date of 26th of March, with nobody know what's going on, right? Speculation starts running, rumors starts flowing out, leak images starts popping up, and then when it comes to the late night of 23rd of March in Southeast Asia, that's where we officially seen the leak, right? The leak of these images. And next thing you know, they announced that the sale is going to be on 26th of March, where everybody starts planning and queue starts happening as early as 25th of March, and it just went crazy, right? So these watches are made to a one-on-one lookalike from the Speedy 3861. The same case shape, the same case size, same dimensions and whatsoever, fitted with a Swatch movement, which costs about $260, right? So I'm not sure how you guys think about it, but to me, I think it's a really, really good move on Omega. It's, I would say, a accessible price point for people to get into owning a Speedy, one sort of, yeah. And yeah, I think it's nice, it's interesting. The colors are interesting, some a little bit too wow, some less wow, and so on. But I personally like it. I personally think it's a very interesting proposition, and it's made for both people who wants a Speedmaster and for people who like us, like me, have owned a Speedy wants one as well. All right. So what do you guys thought about this?
I mean, I go first. I think just I think we leave the hype part out of it first and what transpired later. But from a pure marketing and aesthetics point of view, I think I second what you said, James. It's a good move. And this looks good. I mean, like when I first saw it as well, I was like, wow. I started wanting to choose which one I want, and then the Mars one spoke up to me with the Alaska Project hands, and and the hype part of it happened, which I guess we'll get to later, and just kind of threw me off and kind of also made me have very polarizing feelings about the whole release after the fact.
Right.
And maybe I'll eat my own words, but I don't think I'll be getting one anymore.
So I think
even if it becomes widely available.
I see. I think the reason why I say I sort of like it and I sort of want it is because I think personally I've come to a stage where I'm looking at my collection and I'm trying to get something different, right? And this sort of fits the profile without hurting too much of my wallet, right? That's why immediately when I saw it, my eyes leads to the ones that is the least Speedmaster looking one, right? Which is the Saturn, right? Or the what do you call it? The mustache face, right?
It's actually Cogswell from Beauty and the Beast.
Cogswell,
yeah. So that's why personally I relate to it in that way. Like, I was like, I can get something funky, right? Something interesting to add into the collection, add into the profile without hurting the wallet too much. And it's still considered a Speedmaster. I think that's where I'm coming from, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of a marketing standpoint, I think this is genius from Omega, right? It's having the accessibility to purchase it, having given additional exposure to the audience, having them realize that this watch exists, Speedy exists, right? Although it is popular to us, but in actuality, the majority of the non-watch people would probably not know much about a MoonWatch, right? And this allows them to have that exposure to it. And I think the idea is for them to eventually get young kids to eventually aspire to own a quote-unquote original Speedy down the line, right? So I think that's like a brilliant marketing from them.
I think I'll echo that as well from more than just that. This was brilliant on so many levels, simply because first of all, you have to understand the timing of this particular release, right? The industry's watch event for the year was going to happen 1 week after this. And Swatch decides 1 week before that, because they're not at this event, right? To build up to a product that everyone was guessing at, which uses the most accessible brand in the world and one of their most premium brands in the world as well, most recognizable premium brands in the world, right? And all that anybody would talk about leading up to the event was just this, and that timing works so well because now, if you try and recall, and we'll get to that eventually, right? Talk about the other releases, right? It almost like people are more inclined to remember this more than that. And I think the other thing that's really great about this is it transcends the watch world, right? I think that's what James also you mentioned just now. It doesn't necessarily have to be watch people that like it. It's because the Swatch interest group, right, is anyone who just likes fashion, right? So this now means that anybody who's not really a watch enthusiast also has a way to get into the hobby. And that's a market that's largely untapped. If you look at that, right, most people are buying Swatch watches, are buying like Daniel Wellington's fashion watches from fashion houses and all that, right? This is really the one thing you could get for about 1,000 ringgit that actually has a recognition to it one way or another, that even as Speedy enthusiasts ourselves, right, we have no issue thinking of getting one ourselves at some point in time, right? I think that's just brilliant on so many levels because that market segment is really untapped. For a long time in the past few years, right? When you want to talk about getting a watch, it's like $1,000 at least, right? And that's just an entry level brand, right? And now you have a way to get something of some kind of recognition, that people appreciate at that sort of price, at throwaway prices, right? And it's just genuinely fun, right? I mean, you look at this whole thing, you cannot not smile, right? But I wanted to find out more from Tim, because Tim, you're not a Speedy owner, but did it cross your mind that this could be it?
I kind of did, because it is definitely, I think James brought it up, right? Like for those who doesn't have a Speedy, and even if you're a watch enthusiast, this could be even a cheaper way to kind of own and feel a Speedy. So I definitely did thought about getting it, but then again, I also kind of a little bit resonate with Han, because beyond it, looking past the hype, right? Like initially it was the hype and wow, everybody's talking about it, and like I really like the Jupiter and the Mars, but if I had to choose one, it's just the Jupiter. And I really wanted to get it because it looks so cool, the design. But when I see the hype, and then when I start to see like comments about the quality of it, no doubt it's a good piece, that there is a branding behind, but I also realized that it's probably the most expensive Swatch watch in the collection. I may be wrong, at 1,000 ringgit. So I was thinking like, is this something that I need to get now? Is it something or something that I can get later? So surprisingly, the desire to own one, it's not as strong anymore. Not as strong anymore. And it's really two things. One is when I see how crazy the hype was. Number two is starting to read about reviews about that the watch it feels very cheap. It feels very plasticky. So
as it should be by design, right?
I reserve my comments until I'm able to feel it in person. But right now I don't have a desire to rush out to get it lah. That's for sure.
I think the whole thing about it being plastic and the quality not being great, right? Actually, it's part of the design. That's why I don't understand why people are upset with that. You are paying for a plastic watch that's designed to break down. I mean, let me be honest, right? It's designed to break down eventually, right? Planned obsolescence right there. But I think that's a great segue now, James, for you to trigger the hype story.
But so before we go into that, right? I think a lot of the expectation of how the watch it's supposed to perform, it's supposed to be a fun quartz, but because of all the hype around it, I think inadvertently some people would have also associated the resale price to what it should be performing at, and hence people start going crazy because it left a bit of a stain on their hands or whatever, right? So I think it's
but to that point as well, I feel like yes, you're right, really, that it's a watch that people expect to break down. But then again, 1,000 ringgit is not a small amount either, for some people. And 1,000 ringgit, you could also get a pretty solid mechanical watch. So that's why I feel like 1,000 ringgit for a watch that, if again I reserve my comments on the quality, but if it's really as bad as they say it is, then I feel like it's quite like then it will be more of a watch that you would think twice if you want to wear it as a daily wear. Probably like you said, it's a fun watch. It's really for watch enthusiasts, it's like it's a privilege to be able to have the kind of watch that you wear for fun.
I personally think that depends what you want to compare it to, right? So to me, like what you should be comparing it to is a Swatch watch, right? Whether that it's inferior to a regular Swatch watch or not, I don't know. I haven't seen it in person. But if it's equal or better than a Swatch watch, then I think it's what people should expect. But I personally think at this moment, a lot of these people are expecting a lot more just because an Omega label is being inserted into the watch, right? So I think it's not fair to penalize Swatch, especially this is because of their own perception that, oh, I have an Omega on it right now, it should be better, right?
And the bioceramic material this is not the first time they're using it on the watch, right? I mean, because I checked on the Swatch website, they've used it for other Swatch watches as well. So this is not new. This is something that they've been already selling.
They didn't say it's new, right?
There's nothing new about the bioceramic. I think they did that 1 or 2 years ago. That was their big deal 2 years ago or something.
Yeah.
All right. So jumping into the whole entire hype, right? Started 26th of March. You can see the various queues was formed. People were queuing like 48 hours before, and it just went mad, right?
Yeah,
it just
pretty insane.
Absolutely mad, to the point where people got injured. Like people were screaming at everybody, and this sort of like, I personally feel that it creates a whole negative image about this, right? And I think Han and I will talk about it as well. We don't really want this to be involved in the watch scene, right? And how to say, on top of it, Swatch has made several announcements as well that, hey, calm down. This is not a limited edition. This will be produced. This will be made online. Chill the F down, right? And next thing you know, thousands of people were there, right? And it causes, and the most important part of it, at least from what we can see, at least on what people have reported, a bulk of them are scalpers, right?
Yeah.
And then this causes like, oh yeah, screw you, scalpers and stuff like that. But I mean, I personally have no issue against them. They have queued fair and square to get it. And if the ones is anybody were to blame, is the people who purchase at an exorbitant fee, right? So you drive the price up. If you don't purchase, scalpers won't be able to sell it. And if you do purchase it, I sort of feel bad for you. And I hope I'm right that everybody will eventually be able to get it. And please just be patient. And there's no need to rush for it, right? So
do you guys think that Swatch actually anticipated so much demand for it? I think, when I first heard the news, I thought like, okay, it's cool. It's going to get a bit of hype, but I did not imagine to be at this scale. Do you think Swatch knows or had an inkling that it would end up like this?
I think my view is exactly your first reaction. I think that's how we kind of all reacted, right? Because it's like, like it or not, the watch community is a niche community. So it's like, you would think that not everybody's going to line up for it because and I think to Tim's point, it's 1,000 ringgit Swatch watch, right? So not everybody's going to line up for 1,000 ringgit Swatch watch. So I think they were just ill prepared for what was about to happen. Now, they're not going to be unhappy about it, but if you notice the steps that they took leading up to it, right? So they go out and say, all right, 2 per person only. And then the night that this started to fester, right? Because this is the night before, I think Australia and New Zealand, if they were the first to see this, right? At the moment that they were about to sell, then they reduced it to 1 per person, right? That means they actually didn't anticipate. No company goes out and starts saying 2 and then says 1 after that, if they knew this was coming, right? And I think they also probably didn't anticipate that it would be such a big deal. That's why I think they were all only like 100 units, and all the retail, I actually feel for the retail brand managers if they've never had to deal with a line like this before, right? I think I made an example, like McDonald's knows how to deal with it in Southeast Asia because they've gone through cycles of doing this sort of thing, right? That they've refined the simple process of just even 2 hours before sale, they go out and give you a number and they tell you, if I didn't give you 1, you can still wait, but you effectively are not, you won't have any more already. So they know how to do this. I don't think a lot of the Swatch brand retail outlet managers were prepared for this, right? So that led to a lot of the frustration too.
Yeah.
And, no, I was thinking as well, like to that point, I think, like you said, Woody, they probably had this hypothesis, right? Like there is a target market out there that could be interested, but I think they definitely underestimated the demand, because I imagine that majority of these folks are not watch enthusiasts. They are like, you know, like what you said, the hypothesis of people who are more interested in fashion, they probably get fashion watches, and like suddenly there's this hype about this, and so that is actually quite interesting because that proves that that hypothesis really works.
And I think the other thing that if you're the brand people, right? I think the other thing that was probably on their minds is, I have no plans to make this a limited edition, right? So chill, you know, it's like, I'm planning to mass produce this, right? So when they saw the hype coming in, it's like, but guys, I'm still going to produce thousands of this, right? So calm down, you know, it's like, you can still get it. I think that was where the combination of factors sort of worked against them, because in their minds, if you imagine, right, if you as the production manager goes like, I'm going to make 10,000, 20,000, 100,000 of this, right? I sell a few thousand on day one. Okay lah, you know, if they cannot get, just tell them to wait, it'll eventually come, right? But they didn't expect that thousands of people will be there. Then start spreading the rumors, the conspiracy amongst themselves, right? That actually is going to be limited, that it's going to be sold out, and you know, Omega's and Swatch are going to stop selling it overnight, and it's going to fetch like 3 to 4 times the amount, right? And it's like a self-fulfilling conspiracy theory.
So definitely. It's pretty crazy to think, like, because if they only gave like 100 units per outlet, then that means that in reality, they only expected about 50 to 100 customers that would actually, like, let's say, line up at most. And we see people coming out in the thousands. And even then, I don't know, man. I think, like, if you see so many people, I mean, like, do you really expect Swatch to have thousands of these watches available for people to buy? Like,
exactly.
I don't know. In my mind, I don't think that kind of makes sense as well. I mean, like,
so for all those people that actually in a way blame Swatch, I personally don't agree with that, right? Like you say, it's like a little bit of common sense would help. Like, how much inventory do you think a watch store typically holds, right? There's something that you could sort of like think is that, oh, maybe I don't stand a chance, right? And secondly, they in a way, how to say, they didn't promise that they could have announced, but they didn't promise that everybody will get a stock, and they didn't promise they will bring in thousands, right? This is all your own assumptions that, they should bring in thousands. I don't understand why they don't, and stuff like that. How to say, they should let us know and stuff like that. Maybe they should, they could have, but they are certainly not obligated to. That's how I feel it. I mean, you go with your own assumption that it's going to be worth your queue. So I mean, nobody asked you to queue. So
I mean, in all honesty, full disclosure, right? 3 of the 4 of us in this group actually had thoughts of finding a way to get it on day one. But when we started to see what was transpiring, all of us just backed out. It's like, it doesn't make sense anymore. But for all the thousands of people you see on the picture there right now, they didn't have that sense to go like, guys, it doesn't make sense. Back away.
And talking about the decision to not make it limited edition, I think that is really, really great, right?
Yeah, it is.
I think they could make it even more hype, right? They could announce it as limited edition and so on. But I think if you ask me, I'm not sure what is the actual thought process there, but I personally think they're going with a direction of availability, right? I mean, with all in the watch world, you know, availability, it's sort of like a word you don't hear much often, right? Even for so many other brands, not only just Rolex. I think they want to go the opposite direction and sort of fulfill that gap is missing in the watch world right now. It's like, you want it, you got it. Availability, you can buy it, anybody can buy it. It's affordable, it's accessible. That's the direction I personally think they're going to.
And I think that's part of the brilliance of the marketing strategy, because anyone who's in the community, the watch community, knows that there is a problem now with supply and demand, as in there's too much demand for a lot of specific pieces and you're not going to get it, right? And the entire Swatch group, and even Omega, when they release whatever they're releasing now, right, it's very clear what they're saying to the community, especially for the entry level. It's like, look, if you want it, you will eventually be able to get it, right? So that was even at an Omega level, right? And Swatch is now going like at the most consumer level. It's like, look, I'm planning to make tens of thousands of this so everybody can have it, right? And that allows you to aspire to own our higher end stuff, which some of which will still be limited if we are able to produce it. But we are not going to participate in the other aspect of the watch world. We don't want to be associated with the artificial supply issue, right? If you want it, I'm going to fill the gap now. And more business to us, more profits to us as well, for that matter.
Exactly. If they make it limited, it's just going to serve the scalpers, right? And at the end of the day, it is a plastic watch, so I mean, it's a plastic quartz watch, so I'm pretty sure it's not a problem filling that demand and pocketing the profits for themselves. Like, why would they pass it on to the scalpers and encourage such behavior, right?
I'm actually looking forward to start to spot this Swatch watches, MoonSwatch watches in the wild, people wearing it. Because I think the other brilliant part of it is that it will always be a conversational starter, at least until everyone has it.
I guess. Okay. Now let's go to that topic, right? Let's go to that topic. Let's see. You've seen somebody who. Okay, this will sound really wrong that you're judging people. But let's just say you.
No, I'm going to judge, so it's okay.
Yeah. Let's just say you profile someone, right? And then you see that, okay, this guy is not really, doesn't fit the profile of a watch enthusiast. But they're wearing a MoonSwatch. Is that going to be still going to be a conversation starter for you? I don't think so, is it? Really?
Why not? I would like, hey, isn't that the MoonSwatch, and if they're keen, then we'll strike a conversation. If not, then
they'll probably think
I'm weird.
They'll probably say, yeah, this shit is fire, yo. It's like
we should perpetuate that.
I mean, I guess the team's point is that you'll probably find out in a matter of a minute or two anyway. So yeah, I mean, if it's just a hype beast, then you'll find out in a minute or two, right? So, and I'm sure there are enthusiasts out there who wants one. I mean, I initially wanted one. I feel a bit like I don't want one anymore, but I have my personal reasons for that.
And I feel like on top of that, right? I'll be quite interested to strike a conversation to like figure out especially if they're not a watch enthusiast, like why did they get the watch and how did they find out about it? Actually, I'll be more curious about that. Like, and I mean, it'll be interesting to see from a non-watch enthusiast perspective, like why they get it. Is it because of the brand? Is it really because they like the design? Or is it because of the hype?
It's basically two things, right? For the flex and for the brand.
So I said I was going to judge, right? So essentially, I've made up my mind. I won't be triggering that conversation. It's the same way I treat. No offense, James. You're in good state, right? It's the same reason I will not strike a conversation with someone wearing a Rolex, because I'd rather they start the conversation with me. Because if you're a real watch enthusiast and you're wearing a MoonSwatch, right, you would actually be paying attention to what the other person's wearing and trigger that conversation. I don't want to know, because 9 out of 10 of you probably got it for the brand name and for the flex only. And it's the same reason I don't want to talk to Rolex people, because 9 out of 10 of them are the same kind. It's and no offense, but that's the way the watch world is, right? I think it was Watchfinders that said 90% of people that buy watches really buy it for the status symbol. So if that's the case, right, I'm not going to start a conversation with you about watches unless you want to.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it works both ways, right? Yeah.
Yep. And that leads to the next topic, right? Still in this Omega MoonSwatch, does it or does it not devalue the Omega brand or MoonWatch?
I think initially, Han, you had concerns about it, right? Like the Speedmaster name, right?
Yeah, I did. But it was mostly around the fact that they use that word, word for word, and that whole exact same branding, in the font type and whatever it is, right? So but having fleshed it out a little bit more with you guys and all that, I think I kind of get it now. In fact, as you rightfully put it, that it actually is the inverse, right? It actually makes your MoonWatch a lot more desirable and a lot more special in a way that is what inspired this product to be manufactured in such a manner and marketed in such a manner to drive more awareness towards the brand, right? So I think, yeah, so that part was there. I did have that initial concern. Yeah.
I mean, I formulated my point of view took a while, but eventually I decided, I think I got a lot. I put up a post, a story on Instagram, right? You won't believe the number of messages that came to me after it saying like, whoa, you just fired it broadside, right? You just had to do it, right? So just for context, what I said, and I'm going to quote what I say, that I'm not going to take it back, right? Now, when you talk to someone about a Speedmaster, right, there's always this talk about, the history, about the innovation, about the watchmaking, about how it represents humans' ability to conquer the obstacles and get to the moon, right? So all of this story, right? And then suddenly overnight, because of a MoonSwatch, they go like, my God, this watch here, this plastic fantastic, right, devalues my MoonWatch. And I'm like, guys, let me just put it this way, right? If you really were confident about what you really liked and you really appreciated it for what was the history, the watchmaking and all that, you would have no issue with it whatsoever. The only reason you have an issue with it, right, is because you actually bought the watch to show off and to flex that you have an Omega. So now that somebody else can have an Omega logo on their watch, right, it's an issue to you. That means you are the issue. It's not Omega. You are the one that put so much into this, right? That because I can buy this watch, I'm better than you, right? That now that someone else can have it, oh man, I'm no longer special. Then that problem is not Omega's problem, it's yours. So it's like, I just had to call it out because everybody, and I have to say it's a guilty pleasure now, because anybody who says it right now, I judge, because now I know how much status you put into that watch, right? I think the other part about this whole thing, and I had a longer debate with some people on a watch forum about this. I just put it this way, in a space of luxury or artisanal stuff, right? There's this saying that James also uses, if you know, you know, and that's good enough, right? Amongst people that know it, right, an art piece has a particular value because you know who painted it and all that. To someone who doesn't know, right, it doesn't matter when they look at it, it's like, it's just a painting, right? When you start operating in that space, you don't feel threatened because you know what you have, right? But it's when you don't know why you got it and all you got is because your friends told you it's the next best thing, right? That suddenly 1,000 people can own it, then you're upset because you didn't buy it for the right reasons. I'm sorry lah.
Can't word it any better than that. So
yeah, fair enough. And I would say that perhaps I was a bit quick to jump the gun and also feel that way. But after having gone through the whole motion and seeing the commotion and all the things that transpired, I mean,
we're cool.
It gives a lot more clarity. Right? It is what it's supposed to be, which is plastic fantastic. So yeah.
But if how to say, if I were to, I mean, would you feel better if they didn't make a mission to the moon in plastic? I mean, like like initially, I mean, yeah.
No, I don't think it was anything to do with that.
No, I think it's actually a nice piece to have for people who aspire to want to have it, and that's the closest thing you can get, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's one thing that a lot of people have been saying, and I think we're looping back to what Tim is saying as well, right? The photography and the rendering here is beautiful, that everyone thinks it's awesome, more awesome than it actually is, right? So when you actually see it, it genuinely looks plastic, right? So I think there's no confusing the two.
yeah, fair enough.
All right. So before we move on to the next topic, I just need to say this out again as well. Please do not pay the exorbitant price. I mean, if you have so much money to waste, just buy a proper Omega instead, right? You're way better off in that route. This will be, and I hope it is what as they announced, it will be mass produced, will be made available for purchase online, and most people should be able to get it eventually, right? Just calm down, chill. don't need to cause any commotions or anything, and just chill.
Yeah.
Yep.
I guess before we move on, maybe
Mm.
can we go around and just, I would like to hear from each of you guys whether you would still be wanting to get one, given the current situation. And if yes, which one would it be?
Personally, I'm 50-50, right? If this still continues to be hyped up and continue to how to say to create difficulties for me to acquire it, probably not, right?
No,
But
let's say you can get it for retail off the website.
Off the website easily, like I don't have to spam a crash website to get it or anything. I still would, and I would get the satin because, like I said, I'm at the point that I'm looking for things that stands out within the collection. I think this ties back to the point where I talk about the sub being a little bit boring, and I'm sort of having the sort of inclination to sort of look for something different in the collection. So satin is going to be the one that is going to be a fun watch to own. Yeah.
Okay. Woody?
I think, I considered it at the very start when it launched, but now that the hype is all there, right? I think I'm in a boat where I'd like to be able to see it in person and then see if it sparks joy or not, right? And if it does, and it's readily available, I probably might get the Mars one simply because it's a nice completely playful reference that cannot be, you look at it almost cartoon-like, right? And it's so bright red. And there's this reference that you also, Han, correctly pointed out. There's this whole Alaska project thing that only Speedy fans will understand, right? And everyone else will be like, what are you talking about, right? I like that idea about it. So if I do eventually get one, it'll be that one. But right now I'm in no rush. I really kind of want the hype to die down and be able to walk into a Swatch shop and actually see like, oh, here it is. I still want it, Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the only one that has the Alaska project hands.
Yeah.
Tim?
Definitely the Jupiter. I like the splash of orange. I really like the I presume it's a beige dial. And actually, Woody, to your point earlier, it struck me something. It struck a chord with me, like, as you correctly pointed out, in print, right, it looks amazing. And in fact, the first thing I think of is like the IWC kind of series, like in beige, in the deserts, in the Mojave Desert, in green ceramic, but this is definitely not green ceramic. So I have a feeling, right, when I actually feel it in person and I feel how cheap and plasticky it feels, as much as it looks good, I have a feeling that I will not make the purchase because, and there's nothing against the watch. It's just that for me, I think watches, I want it to last. And for something that it's so plasticky, I feel like, I can't really wear it like any like the normal way I want. I have to think twice, especially if it loses color. You can't wear it when you're gonna get sweaty. Then I'll probably, wouldn't wanna, because then that defeats the whole purpose of like you're looking after the watch, which I don't like that. So probably, like, you will have to go and see how the build quality like is in shop before I make a decision.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Personally, I was ready to, if it was readily available, I would have been ready to drop the money on it and just get it for the sake of it being fun and the novelty behind it. But I think after everything that transpired, and for me, what is the bad thing that happened that I really couldn't really stomach was the fact that before the hype, and I've been in the sneaker hobby, right? So I know about hype and I know about, this queue, this demand and all that, but I just didn't imagine that the violence part of it would be brought into this hobby's hype. And that really didn't sit well with me and just left a very bitter taste in my mouth. Like, I see people pushing, shoving, getting hurt, threatening people. And for me, that's just not what I like to see. So I think for the time being, I no longer feel that way. And probably now I'm in a place where, maybe waiting for this whole hype to die down and also seeing it in person. and then I can make a more informed decision lah. But if anything, it will probably be the Mars. Yeah.
All right. Cool. Right. I think we have spent enough time on this topic. So let's jump into the other stuff, right? Right. So we're going to talk about watches that launched prior to W&W 2020, right? Watches and Wonders. So, yeah, there is this 10th anniversary sketch edition, I believe. To be honest, I don't really know much about it. Yeah, it's a polarizing design, I guess. I don't really fancy it. I'm not sure about you guys.
Is that a chronograph?
Yeah, so it's the chronograph.
24 hours.
There's a chronograph. I think one is a chronograph, and the other one is the standard one. So they actually released, I think, these two with the sketch dials, right, as a special limited series to celebrate the anniversary. I'd still prefer the original. I can't deal with the sketch. I think I've got some minor OCD or something, right? It's like I feel like I need to get an eraser and get the sketch marks off.
Was there a chronograph before this, like the same one but not in the sketch version?
I think
I believe so.
Yes. I think it was the.
Okay.
I'm not just confused whether it's a chronograph GMT. There was whether there was two separate ones. Yeah.
But what immediately stand out to me here is the 24 hours hour dial, sub dial, which means that you can actually essentially use it as a GMT. Yeah.
I mean, if money is not an object, then I think I quite dig it, especially the chronograph one.
Okay.
But whether I'll get it, I don't think
so. You fancy the sketch dial versus the normal one? Is that what you're saying?
No, I mean, if the question is whether I would, if money is not object, would I consider buying it? Then yeah.
This means this over the normal looking one. Yeah, it's a chronograph GMT. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. If
I
it's over the normal one, then I think there are better dials that they have. But okay. I kind of dig this.
Okay. I don't know about you guys, but I'm personally not a fan of this series. Right. I have an issue with the lux. I don't know what it looks really, really fat. Right. It's like from the dial to the lux to the bracelet, it just looks really wide and really fat. So I don't fancy it in terms of the design as well for this.
I think if I had the wrist for it and I had the money was no object, I probably would want one in, I think the standard one in steel or something. That would have been really cool. But I don't have the wrist for it, so it's not really a problem.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. And on top of that, they went on with the biggest flex ever in creating this beast, right? This monster creation, which is
this is
super,
ugly,
super thin. Right.
Wow.
That is, I mean, I don't like design, but I have to say I'm really impressed.
The bracelet is thicker than the watch case.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, it's impressive, right? Like, look at that, right? I mean, prior to this, the previous thinnest one is the Piaget.
Wait, is that a QR code?
It is. It
comes with an NFT.
Right?
It comes with NFT. Yeah.
Oh shit! Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's interesting now.
This for me is the epitome of hype beast.
What?
Yeah, because it's a double flex, right? Worst thinnest watch. What can be a bigger flex than that? And then the NFT as well is like built for the. This is built like
flex on flex, you know.
Exactly. I'm sure like watch enthusiasts will get it too, but I feel like the target audience is not watch enthusiasts.
It's a rich boy flex, man. This is like rich trust fund flex.
Yeah. But my hats off to Bulgari for achieving the record after record after record, right? Because they've got the thinnest everything now, you know. It's like automatic watch, tourbillon, you know, everything you can think of, right? They hold it now. And it's not like they did it all at one go. They actually, it's almost like a warning shot, right? Every year they will release one, right? And to the point where they've got this entire collection now. So it's a case of crazy manufacturing, if anything.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's like if I look at the first thing that comes to mind when I look at this, right, it's like, how is the rigidity of this thing? It looks like it's going to be snapped.
Bengate.
Yeah, Bengate, right. I mean, that's the
Yeah,
first thing that comes to
man.
my mind. It's like,
Exactly.
wow, okay. But yeah, this is something that very likely none of us will own, but we will definitely admire. And I would definitely want to see one in person if I
How do
can.
you even set the time?
There's this
There's like it's a wheel that you
yeah.
okay.
There's a flat ass crown.
It's like a cog on the side. All right.
Yeah. Alright. Anyways, moving on. Next, Breitling, right? There's something that Woody is a little bit excited of. Right. So they released a couple of new Navi timer, I think from all the way from 41, 43, and 46, right?
Yeah.
But 46, we're not going to talk about that. So it's really cool. It's in the in-house movement now. Pretty beautiful. And it's also thin enough, right? I wouldn't say very thin, but thin enough, right? So starting with the 43 millimeter ones, right? What do you guys think?
I think if anybody can pull this one off already, right? This is a no-brainer update. Because it's just like the Speedy fan base, right? In the Breitling fan base, what will happen is you reintroduce the AOPA logo that was on the original Navi timers. And you've cleaned up the dial somewhat also, because like it or not, people don't really like the 4:30 date, right? And now they've concealed it and into the 6 p.m. location, and it's just a lot cleaner now. Another thing that's worth noting is it's also got this alternating brush polish look now, right? Which makes it a bit more sporty as well. So I think anybody who's like into a Navi timer who could pull it off should probably just get the new one. It speaks more to people as well. But that's just, I have to admit, I'm a sucker for Navi timers. I never could wear them. And so the 43 was something I always admired, but you just walk away after that.
Yeah.
Right. Definitely cleaner in the date, cleaner in the font below the logo, cleaner in the the what do you call it? The bezel. It's not a bezel, the outer ring, all right?
It's still chaos, but I love that chaos.
Yeah. It's
right. I mean, it's less chaos like compared to the old one, for sure.
Yeah, it's really cool. Always like Navi timers, but yeah, that's what they put it. Impossible to pull off for guys like us.
Right. But that being said, there's a piece that I mean, we can wear, right? With a what? Right now, on paper, 47.8 millimeter, but on actuality, I mean, reality, 46 millimeter lug to lug.
Yeah.
Very, very wearable.
Actually, I think I forgot to correct this. It was 47, that's official. Someone measured it as 46. So
46.
Yeah.
That's a big difference, huh?
Yeah, I think it's 40. Officially, it's 47. So I think I made the error there. It's just officially 47. And 47 is smaller than the MoonWatch.
Yeah. The MoonWatch is 48, right?
Yeah. So I'm in trouble. Officially. I've already sent a message to the AD and said, when it comes in, right? Just let me know. I need to see it in person to see whether it sparks the right reaction, right? But of course, the thing that I kind of wish they had, and they didn't have it at all, right, is the classic reverse panda, which was you saw on the 43, right? They don't have that layout for the 41. This is the closest that that would appeal to me, I think. I think Han, you feel the same way, right?
Yeah, because I feel like first impression was when I saw all the 13 colorways, like, oh no, it's like another brand that's doing this.
Yeah.
But then when it comes down to it, it's like the one that really stood out was this color, and so happened this color. I mean, of course, from the original reverse panda, which is always going to be a classic. But apart from that, this one was the one that really like, wow, this is nice. And so happened it's on the 41 mm, and it's not repeated in any other case size. So it's kind of like,
it's kind of special, right?
Yeah. So you kind of know that, I mean, you already know you're in trouble. Yeah.
Yep. But I'm interested to see in person as well. Judging on the video, yes, it is thinner, but it's not exactly
No, it is not.
thin. Yeah.
It doesn't have the clever way that the Omega hides the thickness, right? With the cantilevers and the thin mid case and all that, right? So this has got a chunky side profile. So it's quite important to see it in the flesh to figure out how it really wears.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be one of those who would recommend buying this off, without sight unseen, right? It's probably not a wise idea for a watch like this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
seeing the renders of this in the strap and in the bracelet, I would have to think that this is also pretty much a strap monster. Because if you put it side by side with the bracelet version, I think it doesn't pop as much. But in this render that has the leather strap,
yeah, with the
I
matching
mean, I kind
brown
of
as well,
feel,
right?
and I kind of feel that it's not just with the matching brown, but there's probably a lot of combinations that will probably look cool. With it, so that's another part that's going to get you in trouble.
I'm going to quietly pretend this didn't exist.
Is that on your list as well, Han?
I don't know, man. Like, I think finding the right Grand Seiko is still my next big mission, but who knows? I mean, I need to see in person.
Fair enough. All right. So moving on. After Breitling, we have Longines. All right. So starting with that, we have the I think this was launched sometime in February. It's a colored, so-called colored version of the Legend Diver. Right. I personally am a fan of this watch. Always considered getting one. In terms of the new edition, I didn't find it too special, to be honest.
Is it just a dial recolor?
That's what if I'm not mistaken, that's all that they do. For both the 42 and 36. Yeah. So it's interesting. It's I mean, you don't hear much about it. I think that's why it isn't that.
I think it's a cool design, but I kind of feel a little bit allergic when I see like everyone doing colors, like how Han reacted. It's like, oh no, colors, right? So the original was always very nice. So I'm not so sure how I feel about these two variants right here.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's a little bit. I'm personally the other way around, right? I'm personally getting more and more how to say, open the possibility of getting something colored, right, to just spice things up a little bit. Like for the Speedy 57, I find that interesting. I find that maybe, right? But for this, I don't know, there's something about it. I guess the color that they use or the design that they output and so on, I didn't really fancy it. I did have a different feeling when I compare this to how I feel about the Speedy 57.
Yeah. I think I'm okay with colors. It's just that I would have also hoped that that's not the only thing that they change. But I think a lot of brands are doing a bit of a cop out now, right? Where like, I have all these things that's a classic, and what if I just put on a different color, and then it does sell, and that's the trend. But I just wish that they've done a little bit more, right? Then I would at least feel like, okay, this doesn't stop there, right? Yeah.
It's like now every other brand has a colored dial or a fume dial or a Grand View enamel dial.
Yeah. All right. Next one. I think this is Woody called it the
Nomos.
The Longines Nomos. Yeah. So I think the official Nomos one is called a Ludwig. That's the one with the
it's a Ludwig.
Yeah, so it's like, this looks familiar.
But with a shorter lux.
Yeah, and a very affordable price, if I'm not mistaken. Also, I think it's like for the fact
8,000 ringgit.
Yeah, 8,000 ringgit for an 80-hour power reserve type of watch, dress watch, pretty decent, I think.
That's about the same price as a Nomos, right? I may be wrong.
Really?
But
I don't think the Nomos one is automatic. I think it's a manual.
It's a manual, yes.
Yeah.
So the alpha movement.
Yeah. So I think it's good value. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, if you look into like some vintage Longines watches, they do have this Bauhaus design as well. So yeah, it's not really like them copying as well. So I think that's also to be said, right?
Yep, agree.
Yeah.
Hold on. is it pronounced Longines or Longines?
I feel like I should know this because I don't know.
I'm gonna stay quiet
said,
for this.
Yeah, I think Longines.
For the longest time, I pronounced it Longines, so I don't know.
I have no idea.
I'm gonna go with James on this one, and then we'll find out later.
Yeah. So if somehow we butchered the name, sorry in
Longines.
advance. Yeah.
I just googled it. Longines.
Longines. Okay.
Longines.
Longines. Longines.
Yeah, I've got people calling it Longines like, no, that's not how you pronounce it.
All right, the last one. I think this is the most recent one they announced.
Zulu.
Yeah. I think it's pretty cool. It's something interesting. I do like the design. I like the colors. But yeah, I personally don't know much about it, so yeah, I can't comment much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really nice. I don't know much about the movement and all that either, but I saw a few of the ads or people posting it on like watch forums, and I thought it was really cool. And it's a bit different from whatever Longines has been pushing out, which is great and refreshing to see. And I was expecting the price when I saw that, like, I was just curious about the price, so I just like kind of looked it up, and it's a surprisingly less than what I thought it would cost, which is great, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's a really beautiful piece for the price point.
How much did it cost?
Especially the green one. It's 12.5 thousand ringgit for
Yeah.
GMT. Yeah,
Exactly.
For a GMT, it's actually very good value. I think
yes.
and because it's backed by it's an ETA company, right? You know the movement is going to be solid as well. So I think it's very clever of them. The entire Spirit line has been a really good move by them anyway. It hasn't really spoken to me, so to speak, but I think this series is actually a really good release by them.
Yeah.
It
My
feels like
Hydro Conquest, which is also an ETA movement, has the best timekeeping of all my watches right now. Maybe apart from the Black Bay 58, right? But it blows everything else out of the water. Yeah. So it's really a reliable workhorse movement.
Right.
I don't know why I somehow feel like this release from Longines. Okay, not sure if I'm pronouncing it.
Longines.
It's kind of like, I don't know. It draws parallel to the Black Bay series, to me lah. Like they started with the Spirit Pilot Watch, then they have it in GMT. I have a feeling they will continue to evolve on this base for a few more other iterations. Yeah.
Fair point. I think it's possible.
Yep. All right, the next one from Matt Gallery, right? This is a interesting piece, the Matt 1 Red Edition. And they announced it, I think, 2 weeks ago or 1.5 weeks ago with a open raffle for people who want it. I think the interesting thing that Woody shared as well regarding this is that they allow priority allocation for those who inquire about it, for those who emailed the founder or the creator, I don't know. And they give them first prior whether they want to purchase it or not, which is very, very cool.
So how do I read this? Is it 11:55?
So you're supposed to read from the bottom. So you're supposed to like hold it up and see the time. So you're not supposed to be able to see it at the top view, right?
So it's like 11:55, right?
Yeah.
If I'm reading this.
Correct. It should be 11:55. So just to give you the context, right? This is actually a second version that they're coming out with. Now, MB&F is a high-end watch brand that sells like very avant-garde kind of horological machines, right? And this was actually a sub-brand that they created, that the founder created to try and make it accessible. But the very first model they released was not even really for the public. And what he kind of did was
friends and family.
So the suppliers, the people that supported the brand all this while, very clearly, right, you could see that the price that was put was not meant to make money. It was like, for something like this, for the amount of modification, right, they probably weren't selling it for profit anyway. And it was just really like a thank you, right? And what really happened after that was, even if you were a friend of that friend, right, there was no way to get it. It's like MB&F decided who was going to get it, and it's up to you whether you want to accept it or not, right? There was no other way to get it. And when people asked about whether they could get it, even if they're major MBNF aspirants who don't have a watch and all that, they weren't going to entertain it. But they did say that they will make a public version. So to that point that James pointed out, what was very interesting is they eventually released this. So as democratic as possible, everybody can just get a free raffle for it, right? And then you decide if you get drawn from it. I think open it for 2 weeks. So if you get lucky, you get a chance to buy it. The price is already stated for you, right? You don't have to pay 50% or anything of that sort. It's essentially an allocation
How much
mechanism.
is this?
I think it's
15K ringgit.
Yeah,
around that.
15K. It's not an impressive movement. It's actually a Miyota movement, but they've modified it to be a visual spectacular, so to speak.
Right. When I saw the brand, I thought it was gonna be. I thought you missed the digit.
No,
man. It's like Kurono and Hajime Osoka, right? So essentially like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the beauty of it was, so because it had created such a buzz, and that's where the priority system worked. So what the brand decided to do was anybody that wrote to them before asking to appeal for them to have one for public, right? They decided that whoever wrote to them would get an opportunity to now decline, right? And I think that's a very ingenious way of doing it, because it's like you bothered enough to write to the brand, right? And he actually, in his announcement video, said, don't bother writing now, that's closed already. So I'm not going to entertain any further. So I think that's a very clever way of dealing with it. But yeah, cool stuff.
That's a very good gesture.
Yeah.
And you can actually feel, I mean, to me at least, I feel the genuineness of actually wanting to let this piece out as an affordable piece for people who still able to enjoy sort of like a little bit of the MBNF identity in a way, to a certain extent. It's not exactly the same, but you get some elements of it, and it's priced right, it's done well, and yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I think most of us has already taken part in the raffle, and we see if we were able to acquire it, right?
Yeah.
All right, then it comes to the end of this episode for the releases prior to Watch and Wonders 2020, and we're going to record another episode right after this. Still stay tuned for the next one as well, and we'll see you there. Right, take care.